Hello, we're live. Anybody out there? We are live. I am live with Theresa Conroy. I'm so excited to have this conversation. To get us started, and we got 9 people. Can you hear us? Comment in the chat if you can hear us. Where are you joining us from? Yeah, let us know where you're joining us from. I'm going to start off the conversation by introducing myself. I am Patricia Brooks. I am the founder of the Courage Catalyst. I offer services to help people who are ready to start the next chapters of their lives living and thriving in a new country. And I offer my signature program, which is the Carefree Expat Incubator Program, helping single women make the move on their own. I have one-on-one coaching that Theresa is very familiar with. I offer an information session, a paid information session, where I share information and details about my experiences. And I also offer what I call the Women Rising Roundtable. And there's one coming up this Saturday, all about working through self-doubt. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later in the conversation. But on this channel, I talk about France. I talk about my moving abroad and how you can do it too, and how to move through the things that keep you stuck, keep you from living the kind of life you know you were meant to. And today I have a special conversation with Theresa Conroy, who moved from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania to France. And she's going to share a little bit about her story, where she is right now, why she decided to move there. And then we're going to dig into some really interesting conversation about cultural differences and just life in France in general. So before we, Theresa, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Theresa Conroy. I see from names that are coming up that a few of you know me, and some in even real life. So, and I live in Rennes, France, which is in Brittany. It's the capital city of Brittany. And we've been here just about 2.5 years. And I do have to just put in a plug that Patricia really helped me prepare for this move. And, you know, emotionally prepare for this move, which is one of the things that I like to write about when my husband and I write a Substack blog together about this move. And I kind of prefer to write about that kind of stuff. So it's been really interesting and scary and exhilarating. I'm very glad that we picked this city. We're city people. We've lived in Philadelphia our whole lives, and we knew we wanted a city. We knew we wanted great public transportation so that we didn't have to have a car. And we did move from a city of, I think Philadelphia has about 1.5 million people, to Rennes, which is about 230,000, I think, in the city proper. A lot more in the metropolitan area, but and we used to think we were going to move to Paris, because I think that's where everybody thinks they're going to move to, until they start to look at the prices of apartment rentals and realize that we would be living in probably a studio apartment. And we actually have a beautiful 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment in a modern building in Rennes that we love. We're renters. We didn't want to be homeowners anymore. My husband particularly didn't want to rake leaves, sweet gum balls, or shovel snow anymore. So we don't have to do any of that. Of course, it doesn't really snow here. The weather is a little challenging and interesting. The bureaucracy is also a little bit challenging, but I have to say that I think that depends on where you go. I know that yesterday I was in Paris just for the day, and we walked from the train station past the prefecture, where you would go to pick up your carte de séjour, and the line was blocks long. And my husband said, this is why it takes everybody so much longer to get their carte de séjour, kind of their green card here in Paris, than it does where I live, where there's absolutely no line outside of the prefecture. And um, we got all our stuff done pretty quickly. So that's me. I have retired from two careers. My first one, very long one, for 27 years. I was a reporter at the Philadelphia Daily News. And then I left the paper and became a yoga therapist. And my visa doesn't give me the right to work yet here in France. So I am retired and enjoying that life. So
Thank
that's me.
you. Thank you, Theresa. Thank you for sharing that. We're going to dig into a couple of the blogs that you have written that are really spot on. But before we do that, I want to kind of go into the chat and see who we have. Nodalities from Chicagoland, Mary Jude Samansky from
That's
Philadelphia.
right. I know Mary Jude. Hey, Mary Jude.
Writer Skater, hello. Nancy Gay Rowland, a Yo France follower.
Hmm.
An incredible blog. If you have not already subscribed to the Substack, I highly recommend it. In fact, let me put the link to that on the screen. Here we go. There you go. Who else do we have? Cherie from Portugal.
Mm.
Missy from Los Angeles. Hi, Renee. Renee from California. Are you awake yet? Bernadette. And hi, Dion. Dion from Las Vegas. All right. So we've got a nice group here, and we're going to dig in. So you, Theresa, you spoke about the weather, and how it doesn't snow there. But can you describe what the weather is like? Because I know a lot of people are looking for the right place to move in France, and I'm in the South, and I don't know anything about where you live. So can you fill us in?
Sure. It rains a lot. A lot.
Mhm.
It's we have a lot of what the French call la grisaille. It's gray often. We chose Brittany specifically because we don't like heat and we think that the planet's going to get hotter and hotter. So we wanted to be somewhere where we wouldn't suffer very much from that. And it's very temperate here. It got pretty cold here this winter. And I have to say that it's been particularly gray and rainy, more so than usual. I just read a story in our local paper that said in the first maybe 2 weeks of February, there were about 30 hours of sunshine, which meant that's an average of two a day. So I kind of think what really happened was there was a day or two when the half a day was sunny because it's been, you know, it's a lot. It's a lot. People from maybe the Pacific Northwest would be used to this. I wasn't used to it. It took me a little while. When you watch the people here, you notice that they don't stop doing anything. I mean, if I said, "Oh, I'm not going to go out shopping now because it's raining," we would have no food. It's just you have to just do your stuff. The people in Brittany are very, they're hardy people. They put big umbrellas up. They're sitting outside in their terraces with their coffee or their beer or the cider,
Well,
rain or shine.
I think the French are a hardy
Hmm.
group of people. I've said
Yeah.
that. I see them sitting out at the cafe when it's kind of cold, and they're
Hmm.
outside, and I'm like, I'd be inside as an American. I'm a wimp. But you're talking about the weather and that they're hardy people. French seem to be a hardy people. You wrote a vlog called Voila Voler.
Hmm. Well, this is about something I resisted, and you might notice if you've been to France, you see shutters on all the windows, and some of them are lovely little, like old-fashioned ones with carvings in them, bright colors or blue or red. And you see them in houses in the United States too, but they're just decorative. But they're really useful here. They use their shutters, which in French are volets. In my building, which is a modern building, we have electric shutters. And you've got a button inside and it all comes down, complete darkness. when you have them down. They're on every single room. I have a lot of windows and doors, glass doors. And I understood, there's really no air conditioning here. I don't know if you have it down south, but it's really rare here to have air conditioning. And maybe for 5 or 6 days during the summer, it's, 85 or above. So it's a little bit uncomfortable. And for the first couple summers we were here, I resisted what all my neighbors are doing, which is in the summer during the day, shutters go down. They're turn on the lights, nothing. And my thought was, how could you be keeping fresh air out? Like, that's crazy to keep the fresh air out. Someone told me, I think it was one of my French teachers told me, no, we're keeping the hot air out. And so they open the shutters early in the morning. You open the shutters, they're open during the night too, but you keep the shutters open until the sun really gets stronger. And then all the cool air is in, and then you kind of lock it inside. Mm-hmm. And then once nightfall comes, you can open it, which, by the way, the sun doesn't in the summer go down here until about 10 p.m. So, then you close then you open the shutters again. You have the windows open while you sleep, and you do the reverse in the winter. So you'll let the sun in all day and you'll close them to keep the heat in. I did not believe that. I just said, like, that's ridiculous. I just didn't believe it. And then last year I thought, I'm just going to try it. And damned if it didn't work. It actually really works. It's odd to keep, your in darkness, but it works. It's a way of controlling temperature that is brilliant and great for the environment too.
Yeah, I resisted this too. Because I don't want to be in the dark. I work at home. I don't want to be in the dark, all day. And so I resisted this too. And I think it was last summer. We've had, some really, really hot days. And I said, and I have a wall unit air conditioner, but I thought, you know what, this is what they say they do. Let me try this out. And so I did, and it was considerably cooler, it was darker. And I did it a couple of days in the summer, not every day, just because for me, I need that light, but it's effective. The other thing I want to say is one weekend, long weekend in the summer, I went away to the mountains, and I left the shutters open. And of course, there was no air conditioning going because I wasn't here. And when I came back, my apartment was sweltering. I was like, I'm never going to forget that again. So when I go away in the summertime, I close them so that when I come back, it's at least bearable inside. So definitely something that I resisted, and I recognize that it's, it works, but I'm still resistant to it.
I think I got over that hump. I think I'm going to go with it. I'm still resistant to the fact that the scarf wearing, that if you get a breeze on your neck, it'll make you sick. That is not how we get sick. And I still refuse to protect my neck against all breezes. But you never know. Maybe someday I'll be sitting there with a scarf around my neck.
Yeah. So so you've overcome that resistance, and you're taking care of that. Another thing you said when you introduced yourself was you knew you wanted to be in a city because you didn't want to have a car. And your husband, Don, wrote a blog for Yo France called The Year of Living Carlessly: What We Gained When We Got Out from Behind the Wheel. Can you talk about what it's been like for you to, not have a car, the benefits, the disadvantages? Fill us in.
Well, I actually think this is one of the best things that's happened to our lives since we've moved to France. Just learning to live without a car. We were getting, in the United States and in Philadelphia, we were a little frustrated by how very aggressive the driving scene was.
Mm.
I drove a tiny Honda Civic hatchback with manual transmission that was 20 years old. And the Ford F-150s are always bearing down on me. And we talked about it often. And we wanted to live in the center of a city where we could easily get transportation. And we were really impressed by the transportation here in Rennes. It's the smallest city in France with a metro system. We have 2 lines of metro. We have terrific bus system. They're going to be putting in a tram system.
Oh,
They
nice.
do park and ride. It's, and also, as you know, in Europe, it's cities are walkable. If I wanted to go from where I lived in Roxborough, which was the northwest section of Philadelphia, if I wanted to go to the CVS, I could walk there. It was certainly close enough, but half of that walk was on busy streets without sidewalks. So I always drove. I drove to the supermarket. Here, without a car, I don't really have a choice. And if it's anything that's, under a half hour, I'm likely to walk it instead of taking public transportation. We have those little granny carts to go shopping with, and I go food shopping 2, 3, sometimes 4 times a week because we have small refrigerators and people here buy fresh food.
And there are
Which
not a
really
lot of
cuts down on
preservatives in the food, right?
No, that's true. So you can't keep them for long. And I'll
Mhm.
tell you, that's another thing that has been a great point, and it kind of folds in with the walking everywhere, is that I have much, much less food waste than I did in the US. First of all, I can see everything in my fridge because my fridge is small, but so I walk everywhere, which becomes part of my daily exercise. Like I go
Mhm.
out early morning hours and walk for exercise or do a little jog for exercise. And then I come home and we have breakfast. And then if I'm going shopping or even if I'm not going food shopping, I'll walk in town. I'll
Mhm.
just, I'll take a walk somewhere. Um, because to do errands,
Mhm.
but also just because it's become such a big part of my life. It's like if
Yeah.
I don't walk throughout the day, I feel like a load. So that's something that's really been wonderful. I feel good about it for the environment's sake. I
Mhm.
also, can hop on a train or metro or bus and get just about anywhere to, a doctor's office to get a mammogram, whatever I need to do. And if we do go, like next week, we're going to go to there's a big like French Resistance Museum in Brittany. We look, there's no public transportation there. So we're part of a car share program in the city where we pay a small membership price and then we can put in a request for a car. It's parked really close to our house. Usually they all are. And, they even give you a credit card to buy your gas. So you don't even spend for gas. And it's wonderful. They're great cars.
Mhm.
So it's been life changing. It gives me even more exercise because I'm getting exercise without, it's not all exercise that I do the walking for. It's, you know, going downtown just to walk around or going to a bookstore or meeting somebody at a cafe. I walk and I make time for it. So yeah, shopping might take an extra hour for that walk and I might be dragging a heavy cart, but
And it might
I
be
get the
raining.
value. And it's probably raining and it's windy, so umbrella's not doing much. So it just makes a huge difference in my lifestyle.
Yeah, yeah. I lived without a car for a year and a half here. And my first year was in Perpignan. It was a city, so I didn't need a car. And then I moved out to a smaller village where the first 6 months I didn't have a car, but just for convenience sake, if I want to go into the city and see something late at night or whatever, it's just so much more convenient to have it. But I drive it maybe twice a week. Um,
Yeah.
and I can there's stores that I can walk to, grocery stores and the
Yeah.
market I can walk to, but just having that it's just for the convenience sake, but not
Right.
necessarily every day I'm in the car. When you say that you have this a ride share service, so tell me about the car because we talk about the French not having air conditioning. Most people or many people don't have air conditioning, and that's true here in the South as well. But what is the car that you share? Is it manual transmission? Is it automatic?
Well, they have a whole fleet of them.
Okay.
And so it depends on what we want and what's available and which location we go to. They've just started to get more automatic transmissions. So there
Okay.
are some cars that are
Mhm.
not manual. I prefer driving manual, and I've done it since I
Yeah.
was maybe, I don't
Yeah.
know, 18 or something. So
Mhm.
I
So
like that.
you fit right
Um, that's
in.
right. But when you rent a car, it's hard to get one. It's getting a little easier, but it's hard to get one that's not manual. The cars are air conditioned. They're newish. I mean, it's been a long time since I've been in one that I thought was really old. What you do is and you have an app which opens the door. What you do is you take a tour of the car first to see if there are any dents or dings or scratches. And when they inspect it afterwards, they put a sticker to show that they've seen it. So if you see anything without a sticker that you didn't do, you take a picture. If you have any trouble on the road, you can call them. Um, you know, um, they, like I said, it's an app. You have a key, and then you leave the parking spot, and you can put up that little thing that they put
Oh,
up to keep somebody from parking there. Sometimes it doesn't work, and sometimes people park there. But it's called Cities, Citiz, and it is in a number of cities in France. So even, for instance, if we wanted to go somewhere by train, and like you, like that's one of the reasons we wanted to live in a city, because we know that when you're more rural, or in a village, you really need a car.
mhm.
But if we wanted to go someplace more rural, we might be able to get a car at a city closer to our destination. That's what we did when we went up to Lille.
Mhm.
We got a car there because we wanted to drive a little bit into Belgium. So you can do that as well. And they're just really have great customer service. It's a great system. It's not expensive. It's very affordable. And yeah, sometimes in the summer, you just go in there and blast that air conditioning.
Yeah, it sounds
And then
really
you get too
interesting.
chilly.
Yeah. Sounds
You're
really
not used to it.
interesting because a lot of people that I speak to, one of the benefits that they're looking forward to in moving to France or to Europe is not having a car. I don't want to have a car, right? And so
Mhm,
thank you for
mhm.
sharing that. That's really interesting. Now, if you have questions for us, this is interactive, so feel free to put your comments in the chat. I see that we've had a couple more people join us. Hi, Nathan. So good to see that you're here. And Marla from Atlanta and Venus joined us as well. So, language is a big deal. And I know that
Big,
you
big.
have been studying French for a long time. And there are a couple of blog posts that you have written about with language. And I found them particularly interesting. And one of the things, well, can you share a little bit about your French language learning journey, where it started, where you are, what level you feel like you are, and then we can talk about the blog post.
Um, I s I I'll make this really quick, but it's an interesting story for me. When I was a newspaper reporter, we had a murderer who was a fugitive in Philadelphia by the name of Ira Einhorn. He murdered his girlfriend and stuck her in a steamer trunk in his closet for
Mm,
18 months. She took off before his trial, and he moved around, we think, through Europe. But one day in 1997, and this was huge news in Philadelphia, they found him in a small town in southwestern France. And an editor asked the newsroom, which was early in the morning, weren't too many people, who did anybody know how to speak French? And I said that I was in advanced placement French in high school. And so he said, okay, you're going to France, you're going to Bordeaux, you're today at like noon. So long story short, once I figured out how to put the rental car in reverse, which is reverse is different here, as many things are. But anyway, and I got on my way to reporting the story. I realized that high school French was in no way gonna get me through this. So I convinced a photographer at a newspaper down there to join me. So, and I would fill him in on all the details of the story so he could have something to put in his paper if he would translate for me. And that's how I survived that. As
Wow.
soon as I got back to Philadelphia, I enrolled in the first level of French class. That was 1997. And I've taken French consistently since then. What is that, like 27 years or something, 28
That's
years?
commitment.
It's commitment. But you know what? I continued. He fought extradition to the United States. So I followed that story for 5 years before he was brought back to the States and tried. So I wanted to be able to read the French newspapers, interview people, follow the story to make sure I was hogging it. I didn't want anybody else to get my story. So I had to speak. They sent me back a second time, and I could do all my interviews in French by that time. But,
Nice.
you know, I still needed work. So I've continued to study and moved up levels. So French literature class, and then I take discussion groups. You know, I have discussion groups that I go to and or take the classes for. I've continued the entire time studying French. I would say that somewhere, if you know the system, they go from A1, you're an absolute beginner. I think C1 is fluent. C1, C2. I would say that I'm
Hyper fluent.
hyper fluent. Is that right? I would say I'm a solid B2, closing in or close to maybe C1. But I always hesitate to say I'm fluent because I think that means you never have to look for a word.
No.
Or, yeah, I
Claim
guess
it.
that's the way.
Claim it. Claim it. I am probably nowhere near you. And I'm fluent, right? I can have a conversation. People understand me.
Yeah,
I understand them. It's not so stressful anymore.
yeah.
Claim it.
I'll tell you that when things happen, like my husband had to have emergency eye surgery, and I was so nervous and upset that I lost a lot of my French trying to talk to the doctor. Um, and I said this is what that one blog post about. I had this one woman who, she's kind of like if I were to mush you, Patricia, in with like a like a strict grammar French teacher that you'd have in school. That's what she was like, because she was more like a language coach. Like we would work on like what's in the way of my self-confidence, like that kind of stuff, just in French, but it was about French. And at one point, we had gone through, I took a package of 12 classes with her. We were finished, and she said, I'd like to talk about like where you think you are and, you know, how this landed for you. And she said to me her advice, and I was like, I don't know where I am and my level and what I should do next. And she said, what you should do next is stop taking all the damn French classes and she said, stop being a French student and be a French speaker. You're a French speaker. You live in France, you speak French. Just go do life in French. And I really took that to heart. And I did, you know, I have branched out a bit into, you know, joining a yoga studio and, you know, things like that so that I can be more, just do it. Although I still take some French classes because, quite frankly, I enjoy it. And I appreciate that Edelweiss says even native speakers look for words. I appreciate that.
Yes, absolutely. They do. And I'll tell you, when I called myself fluent, I'd been studying French since 2014, but I moved to France in 2018. And it wasn't until a year and a half in when I had a telephone conversation with a car insurance agent. And I could understand him and he could understand me. There were some terms he had to dumb down so that I understood, but that's when I said I'm fluent. Now, with certain medical things, yeah, maybe I don't know the words and I'm not, but I still say I'm fluent. And I will say I'm taking this exam coming up in 2
Oh,
weeks,
yes.
this
Oh, it's 2
Delta
weeks.
B2, and that has kind of knocked me down a couple of notches because reading and reading and the oral comprehension, yeah, I'm going to do well in those two sections. But giving a little presentation on a subject that I don't know what it's going to be until they give it to me, I don't sound very good. I can get it out.
But you know what? Talking on the phone is the hardest thing, I think. And that you could do that really well is amazing. And I'm going to debrief you because I'm going to take that bugger soon. I don't know how soon, but I'm going to start on my study of taking that, the DELF.
Yeah.
B2, right?
Yeah, B2. I'm taking it on March 12th.
All
So,
right. I'll light
so
a candle.
thank you. Thank you. But it's really it's nerve-wracking because it's maybe if I wasn't being judged or tested on it, I wouldn't have the nerves and I would do better or feel like I was doing better. But yeah. And then the writing is another thing because I write well in French, but my spelling.
Because none of the words, like my husband says about French, how you learn to speak French is you look at the word and then you don't pronounce any of them. Because how do you know how to spell, anything?
Yeah. Yeah. So we're going to get to the questions in a minute. I want to,
Okay.
finish off on this language topic. So that blog post that you wrote, I don't remember the title of it, but about stop learning and
Stop
start
learning, start
talking.
speaking.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I
Right.
think
Yeah.
that is such a good point because you are a French speaker and you are probably better than you think you are. If you feel like it, you have to, that's that perfection. It's got to be perfect. When I speak English, I know that I'm making mistakes all over the place
Yeah.
and I'm fluent.
Well, the thing is, I think part of it too that's also really interesting is that I don't feel like I'm the same person in French as
Yeah.
I am in English.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I can't, I'm a writer, so I don't express myself verbally in as rich and specific of a way as I can in English.
Mhm.
And I also don't feel like I don't have the same personality. I think I'm a little more like I want to say a little shy or a little like I wouldn't forcefully question somebody and say like, no, you're wrong, and I know the one example I give is when we first got here, the heat didn't appear to be working in my apartment. Winter was here, and there was no heat, and so they sent a technician. And I said to him, heat's not working. And I said, look, come. He kind of seemed to be doubting me. And I said, come feel the radiator. It's cold. And look at the thermostat, the radiator's cold. And he said to me, no, that's how it works. And that was so
That's a French
ridiculous.
response.
It was, it's nothing's wrong. And I paused, like, no, if this was in Philadelphia, I would say, like, who do you think you're talking to? And like that kind of thing.
I
But I
wasn't
was
born
like,
yesterday.
but right, but my thought process was, yeah, the plugs don't work the same, there's no like all these things, the toilets are different. Maybe the heat doesn't like me. Maybe the radiator doesn't need to be hot. I don't know. So I was, that's not me. So
Mhm.
I'm trying to work on being more myself. And I don't know if you've done this, but sometimes you joke or you make it and it doesn't land, or they joke and you don't get it. Like those are the little bits of things that I think might be cultural in addition to
Yes.
language. And of course, the other thing too is people usually ask me where I'm from because there's an accent that, it's not bad to have an accent. That's the thing. A lot of people have accents. As long as you pronounce things right and everybody can understand you and they can understand me and I can understand them, but they can hear that I'm not a native French speaker. So, and so what,
Yeah.
But
Et alors?
yeah, right.
So I
Right.
think you make a good point about the personality, having a different personality. I, like you, feel like I am less assertive
Hmm, hmm.
when I'm speaking French, but I'm sensing that as the years progress, I am more like myself in French when I speak French than
Well, that's good to
before.
know.
You've been there what, almost 3 years. Have you noticed
Yeah.
a shift?
Yes, because I'm just more comfortable in general here. I've noticed too that I'm not as timid at the supermarket as I was in the beginning because you don't know. Here's the thing, and if you're going to move to another country, just know this going in. You don't know how to do anything. Like you don't know how to do stuff.
Mhm.
That's the biggest thing I missed. I didn't really miss the United States. I missed my friends, but I didn't really family. I didn't really miss like the CVS. I missed knowing how to do stuff. And
Mm,
once you start to learn and that becomes habit and normal, then I think across the board, I started to feel a little more,
yeah.
um, you know, assertive or sure of myself. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's so normal, so normal. Well, I think this is an interesting conversation around language. I could talk about this all day. There's one
Mm,
other part of language, of the French language, that I want to touch on because you wrote a piece about two versus vous, two versus vous.
mm,
Can you go ahead and share what that's all about, and we
yeah.
can
So,
unpack that?
like other languages, there's a formal pronoun, there's a formal you, and that would be vous in French, and there's the familiar too.
Mhm.
So the rules are really that when you don't know somebody, or when they're your doctor or something like that, you would vous them. I say actually verbs for that. Somebody that you use vous with, you vous voyez them, and if you use tu with them, you tutoyez them. So you would use tu with your partner, kids, animals, people you know really well, good friends. There are differences in language. There's differences often in how you might say hello to somebody that you're close to. But this is the big thing. So when you meet somebody, so I woo people all the time. That's my starting point. And I follow those rules. And there's this kind of like, I don't quite know this cultural dance very well about when you might switch. Like people have asked me, like, Are should we to each other now? Can we use to with each other? And then I'm kind of flattered. I'm like, oh, I have a friend in France, but not everybody has done that. So, and there's not all. It's not all equal. Like I've talked about the French teachers I have, and many of them have been young French women, and they start out like you do your exploratory call, and they're to you. I have a French teacher in Philadelphia who I love, who's also French, and I think I might be knowing her 10 years. We woo each other. It's never changed. She never asked. We never did the two. I don't know. And then there are people who just, I don't know, just naturally to you, like a friend here in France, and we to each other. Then when I met her husband, I was like, well, does he inherit her too? Or is this a new and I gotta woo him into her? I don't know. And I
Mhm.
don't know, young people are very like they tutoyer all the time. So I don't really mind that. But the point is I don't know what the heck I'm doing with that stuff. I don't know who to and I feel like it's respect. Um, you know, so I woo most people. I'm a little flattered when they asked it to you, it's almost like saying, "Do you wanna be my friend?" Um, so that's always flattering,
I'm the
but
cool
I
kid.
it's still a mystery to me. I don't know if you get all the subtleties, but with the people who don't ask, you just keep doing the "voo," I don't know. I prefer, quite frankly, the "voo," and there's a reason for it, because when you ask somebody if you're toing somebody and you say, "Is that your glass over there?" the glass is you can't hide behind votre. If you would use, so the possessive of the formal vous would be votre or vos if it's more than one, right? So are those your glasses over there? Are those you would use votre? It's always the same. But as we know, things are masculine or feminine in French. But if it's you're two and somebody, you have to know the gender of that noun in order to identify it as ton or ta. So that, you know what I mean? So there's a lot more work you gotta do. You gotta know
Yeah,
something down,
that's such a good point.
yeah. So it's a
Well,
little crazy.
yeah, for me, I feel, there's for me, I struggle with that as well, right? When in doubt, I say I vous, but I'm often one to, if I start to know somebody, I'm often the first person to say, "Can we to each other?" Because for
Mhm.
me, not very formal, and I prefer the two just because it feels it feels more like my personality, right?
Mhm.
The vous
Mhm.
seems kind of stiff to me, and so I will do that. And in your piece, you said, well, what if you asked to tutoyer someone and they say no, right?
Right, exactly.
That hasn't happened to me yet. So
Okay. Okay. Because that's like a fear of mine. And what if I wanna say no? I don't know what would be the reason to say no, but, I don't know. I wanna
yeah,
break up with a friend. Let's go back to the "vous" if we ever see each other just as a
yeah.
symbol. I don't know.
Well, I think that it's an interesting topic that you wrote about, because I never really thought about it in the way that you wrote about it. You even mentioned, well, if you have a friend and you two your friend and you then meet their husband, are
Right.
you to them or do you woo them? I will say I have a friend, I went to dinner at her house. I met her husband for the first time there, and I did too him, but
Mhm.
I wasn't sure. It was like, and he didn't seem to frown about it, so I think that was okay.
Yeah, yeah. It's a little, it's a thing. But they seem to, they're kind of easy with it, and I've never had anybody correct me on it. Um, you wouldn't "vous" like a child or an animal, though.
Mhm.
So that's kind of you don't have to ask permission of the dog to join.
Woof.
And the other interesting thing is, you know who else you to? God. You to God. Like when you pray in French,
Oh,
it's tu.
okay. I didn't know that. All right.
I'm pretty sure that's the case. If anybody has contrary information, let me know. But to my knowledge, I think you to God.
Rider skater, are we still live? Are we boring? Are we boring you? We're live. So, anything else you want to share about your experiences here in France before we jump into some questions?
Well, one thing is for people who are intending to do this, I wanted to just quickly say I have anxiety. I'm an anxious person. I spent many, many, many nights lying awake in my bed in Philadelphia thinking, oh my God, what are we doing? Scared to death. And I was determined to do it anyway. I just my mantra was, I'm doing it scared. And I wish that I had known then, or somebody had told me, so I'm telling you in case you want to do this, um, that you can do it even scared. And I wish that I knew that I was going to be able to meet the challenge and that everything was going to be okay.
Hmm.
So that's what I want to tell you, especially if you want to move or there's something big like this that you want to do.
Yeah, you're still standing
I'm still staying.
and you're enjoying life. That's great. That's great. Yeah. Um, so I don't know about this. This is a to your church, your God question. Isn't there a difference between Protestants and Catholics for to, who knows?
I don't know. I
And
do
which one
not
says
know.
to and which one says who?
I was raised Catholic. I have not. I don't know. I haven't prayed here,
We don't know
so
the answer to that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
All right. Well, there was some questions from I think this was the first one. The first question from Victoria Winters. If one is self-employed in the US, can that activity continue if relocated in France? This is a question best asked of immigration attorney, or there's a woman that I worked with, Valerie Aston, and she has a company called Start a Business in France. I started my business in France, so my business wasn't based in the US, and so I don't really have any insight to that. And there's some gray areas as well. So I'm not gonna step in that. I don't know, Theresa, if you have any other.
It depends on you would like Patricia and I'm sure have different types of visas
Mm-hmm.
because I don't have the right to work yet. So you can look for a visa that would be like auto entrepreneur or something like
Yes.
that. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, the
I don't know
professional
the
liberal
details.
is the visa that I have. And my business is based in France. And so sometimes people want to keep their business based in the US, but then be living in France. And there are all different kinds of versions of that. And so that's a question that is best asked of an immigration attorney or somebody who works with people, and helping them get visas and for people who have businesses. So it's a good question. And that's the best I can do for that. Let's see. Curious about shipping personal belongings. Tips. Did you ship anything?
We shipped very small amount. We like nowhere near a container or anything. We pretty much sold and donated everything. We shipped. My husband handmade 2 tables that we shipped. We shipped art, some sentimental things and photographs, and our winter clothes. We moved in the fall, and we were sure that our winter clothes would make it here, which they didn't on time. So very little because like no electronics because they're not going to work here or work well here. Yeah, so we used a company and they put our small container or whatever they put it in with other things and it was shipped here. And it has to go through customs, so it's a big deal. I know people who use a service called Ship My Bag, I think it is, or Send My Bag, something like that, where you can send suitcases filled. We came here with two. My husband and I each had 2 suitcases and a backpack.
Nice.
So
Nice.
yeah,
I think that's the way to do it. I did eventually ship. So but I didn't ship a lot. Like Teresa and Don, I got rid of most of my stuff, but there were a few things that were sentimental. And before I moved, I had in my mind that shipping was going to be just, really very expensive. So I was not going to do that. But a week before I made my move abroad, I still had this sentimental stuff and I didn't know what to do with it. And I needed to get past that. And so I stored this small amount of stuff and I stored it for a year, saying, oh, I'll come back, I'll sort through it. Came back in a year, didn't do anything with it. And then the next year, the prices for the storage went up. And that second year I said, I'm not doing this anymore. So I wound up shipping and it was okay. The tip that I have is for France, and I think it's true of Germany too, because I have a client who's in Germany who shipped after her first year, is if you're going to move here, and you're going to ship, you want to ship in the first year, because otherwise your items are going to be subject to import taxes. That's my tip. Now, this is a good question. On March 22nd, Dr. Christopher Wells and I were putting on a workshop called Plan, Pack, Minimize. And so this is, we're helping people to really think through the process of downsizing. What are the things you're going to need? What things you can buy here? All of those things. And this is going to be a really good workshop to help you think about, what do I do first? How do I get started so that you can move through this and finally make your move abroad? And that's March 22nd. And I can put a link to that in the
Yeah,
chat.
I've shared that with people because I have to say that this was really, and you know, Patricia, because I was going through it, working with you, this was really hard for me to decide what to keep and what to, what I should have. And you know, Europe is famous for having very small closets and not much storage space. So um, that sounds like a really valuable workshop.
Yeah, I'm putting this in the chat. So you can just click on that. I hope I typed that right. All right. So yes. So and what shipping companies I used. Oh, I'm trying to think of the name of the company. It escapes me right now. Schumacher. Schumacher was the company I used. But I don't know, and I didn't have any problems with them. But I don't know of any others. So, all right, what else? And Robin said that she's going to be at the workshop with us in March. Yay! All right, where am I in the questions? You see a question?
Are there occasions when a person uses familiar tense and expects you to use the formal? Not many, but I think if you're talking to an older person, you would expect a young person to woo the older person and the older person to the child or the younger person, or they might woo each other, but I don't think they would expect you or appreciate it. I also feel very strongly about wooing people who you know, our guardian or when the maid comes into the hotel room, because I feel like I bet you there are people who to them, and I think that they deserve respect of Vu. So, but that's just a personal thing.
Yeah, yeah. Good question. Let's see what else we got. Oh, I don't know. I don't know answer this.
Well, there's actually a map that exists that you can see how they voted in the last election. And we actually looked at voting records when we were making up our list of how to choose. We
I think
didn't,
the
I'll
South
be honest, I didn't. Yeah.
is it the South is more conservative? Do you remember?
There are places that I know that, like up in Normandy or in the far north, I think is more conservative, and I think there's a pocket in the south. I forget what the center's like, but I know that Brittany is pretty liberal.
Mhm.
Um, our mayor is a socialist, so we were
Mhm.
like, all right, we'll go with that. But I just recently saw somebody's YouTube where he compared all these things, really, like, temperature, access to doctors, all these things, and one of them was, how people vote. And so you can find that out if it's important to you. It was important to me to live among people. I'm very liberal, and that was important to me. So it's a way you can find that out, I think.
Yeah, Dion, that's a good question. Renee says, that's great. Do it scared. Let's see. How do you choose where to live?
For me, we set up criteria. Weather was important to me. I didn't want it to be hot. I wanted to be close to Paris so that, for travel out of France. I wanted, as we said, a city where I could walk. I wanted it to be lively. I really, really love the old French quaint architecture, but I prefer to look at it out of my really modern apartment. So I wanted a place where I could have a brand new modern apartment. And actually, one of the things that impressed me about Ren was that there seems to be a really very thoughtful melding of the very old, and because we have some of the oldest half timber houses in France here, and with the new architecture. And so I just wrote down all my criteria, all the things that I wanted. And then we did online research to find out what cities met with that. We had a list of 7, I think. And then we spent 7 weeks in France, spending a week living in each city. At the end, I have to say that we did intellectualize it, but honestly, when I got to rent, it was very much a gut feeling.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. For me, it was less a spreadsheet and more, this feels good to me, right? And while I was in Perpignan just for a year, this region was right. I moved about 40 minutes out, so that for me, the feeling was really important. So good question. And this answers our question. So, oh no, that's not it.
You know what?
Well,
Can we pause?
congratulations, Marla.
Can we pause there for just a second? Marla, when I was a yoga therapist, I specialized in teaching yoga therapy to people with Parkinson's. So you should drop me an email or something if you have any questions as you come here. I can't work here, but I can talk to you about things if you need to.
Yeah, nice. So yeah, she wants to get in touch with you. What's the best?
I could put, let's see if I can write it in the chat.
If not, you can put it in the private chat and
I got it. Yeah, I got it. It's in the private chat. I just put my
all right.
I just put my email address in there. And you can also contact me via my Substack, which is Yo France. And the title, by the way, my husband and I worked at a tabloid newspaper, like a sports crime newspaper in Philadelphia called the Philadelphia Daily News. And its feature section was called Yo, because YO, because Philly, like think of Rocky, like Yo Adrian. We say that a lot. So this was why we called it Yo France.
Let me put that in the chat as well. Ooh, I didn't mean to go to it. I clicked on it. I'm like, did I lose you? And that's the Substack. All right. So that was good. I'm glad that I clicked on that because you can be a help. But the one I was going for was this. Oh my gosh. Where am I in the chat? Was this father one. Here we go. The Our Father. Right? So it's it's tutoyer. So that's interesting. Huh. All right. We're going to have a couple more questions answered, and then we're going to wrap things up. When you're applying for a visa, would it help to write your reason in French, your motivation letter in French, or would that seem like doing too much? I want to improve my chance of getting in.
I would write it in French. And if you don't speak French and you use like a translate thing, if you can get somebody who speaks French just to eyeball it, because sometimes the translation apps aren't quite on. Sure, why not? And don't make it long. You know. And you know what? I don't know how much they look at that, but I was the same way. I was so nervous to go to that appointment. And all they did was pretty much just collect the papers and take my fingerprints. But sure, I would write it in French.
I'm just answering a question in the chat. Somebody asked me to provide my shipping company. It was called Schumacher. I just put the name in the chat. This is did that to Vu conversation was so insightful. Yeah, go ahead and read that blog post too. It's a good one. It's Theresa's just so funny. When she writes, she's so funny. So go check it out. I understand that A few states allow reciprocal exchange of driver's license. How difficult is it to pass the driver's test in France?
Did you have to do it?
No,
No,
Virginia has yeah.
I'm reciprocal too. Although I know someone here who just on Facebook today, he was telling me that he just passed it. He is not. I don't think he's fluent in French, but he said it was tough. It's the law. I mean, learning the laws were there. There was a sign there for a long time that I was like, it just looks like a rocket is coming up next. It looks like a rocket. Like I'm saying, look, there's a rocket coming. It was like an intersection sign. So it is something you have to study for. But I couldn't tell you because luckily my state was reciprocal.
I can't tell you either. I do think it might be kind of challenging. Well, first of all, it's a test, right?
Right.
Then it's in French, right? So, but I mean, there are resources that you can, I guess, learn. You'll need to study for it and go in with a positive attitude. All right. This is a question for you, and it's with an S too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It's a healthcare desert?
Mm-hmm.
No, absolutely not. We have several good hospitals, lots of doctors, specialists. I've not had any trouble getting, doctors or specialists. Sometimes you have to wait a bit to get in, but that was true too in the United States when I left. But nope, really very good healthcare here. I've been so happy with it.
Mm-hmm. On the other hand, where I am it's a medical desert.
Mm-hmm.
So unfortunately. All right. So it looks like we have gotten to the end of our questions. Got some Renee says this was a very enlightening live session. Really enjoyed listening to you, Theresa. Thanks for your insight. You are awesome. Thanks so much, Patricia. Oh, thank you.
Thanks.
You.
That's a good note to end on.
Yes,
Thanks so much, everybody, for coming. And you have my email address. I'm retired. So shoot me a note if you have any questions. I'm happy to, if I can help, answer.
Yeah. And one last thing before we go. Saturday, March 1st, I am having the second Women Rising Roundtable. And what that is for women who, whether they're moving abroad or not, who want to feel more empowered about their lives, who join a conversation of like-minded women. And we unpack that. And Theresa, you joined the first one.
It was terrific.
It's a really empowering experience. And so there's still space. If you're interested in joining, you can go to thecouragecatalyst.com/roundtable. And I'll put that in the chat here so that you can check it out. And I hope to see you there. All right. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate the engagement. And we will see you next time. Take care. Before you go, I'm going to put this in the chat. Round table. I think I might have already put it in one time, but yeah, so check that out and hope to see you there. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.